Okay, so we sort of gave away the end earlier this week of Scoop by Evelyn Waugh. I don't know, Walter. Do you have any summarizing thoughts, or do you have a way of quickly
Well,
telling people how it ends?
Scoop ends, but it doesn't actually end when Boot, the nature correspondent for the Daily Beast, who was mistakenly sent to Ismailia, a small African country, uh, basically figures out or is told, what's going on in a extremely turbid and not particularly interesting set of events that has been construed to the rest of the world as a coup, as a takeover. But the book actually has about a third to go after he comes back, or a quarter to go after he comes back to England, having triumphantly delivered, this news, having gotten the scoop. And it's curious that Waugh doesn't end the book with its climax in Africa, but then has these long scenes of country life back in England where Boot is trying to settle back in with his old nanny at the country estate and so on, and his relatives.
I thought some of that was a little baggy, but
yeah, exactly. It's not the perfect book in some ways, in that its structure is a little lopsided. After the action ends, we just get endless comic scenes, particularly of a banquet that the publisher of the Daily Beast throws for Boot, because the big farce at the end is that the publisher nominates Boot for a kind of a knighthood or a royal distinction, but when they realize there are two of them, the prime minister doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know which one he's going to give it, which of the two he's going to give it to. They realize they've fucked up, and so, as I say, the comedy of the last part is both, this British farce about untangling mistaken identities, and this Waugh-ish, rather indulgent opportunity to make fun of Lord Copper and country life and reporters and so on, and some of the little set pieces at the end are great. And I think the description of Lord Copper's banquets at the beginning of that chapter is the best prose in the book, where he talks about how, it can't be said that Copper enjoyed these banquets more than anyone else, because no one else enjoyed them at all. I mean, and it's a tribute to Waugh's prose. It's a tribute. He never lets you down. I mean, you don't go 3 sentences without an absolute elegant, perfect turn, a satirical touche. It's funny. For a guy who's as funny, for a writer who's as funny and as penetrating as Waugh, there are no false moves. Sometimes, like you say, he does concentrate on scenes that don't have much to do with the story.
He gets a little carried away with his own,
with his own prowess.
Yeah.
For example, there's another scene in which some sort of country bumpkin yokels are supposed to take an emissary from the Daily Beast to the country house where Boot lives, and they're explaining in a regional dialect that the reporter does, or that the factotum doesn't understand, how they're going to get him there. Yeah, it's going to have to be the bay. The old nag, the old slag can't do it. And he attempts to decode this working class regional dialect and can't. Finally, he decides to walk 6 miles, rather than go with the slag or whatever.
Right.
And it's played forever and ever, but the action of the book has essentially ended.
Oh yeah, all it is at the end is just wrapping up and then sort of deliciously taking pleasure in the humiliation of everybody
Right.
who
Yes.
and really that's to me what I think Waugh was picturing probably with this last section. It's really a lot of it is about the British stiff upper lip, the image of the Briton who in any situation is able to remain dignified and calm and always has the appropriate posture and manner and never seems frazzled by anything. Well, he sort of takes that apart in one scene. As you say, it's in exactly the same place that you mentioned in the description of the banquet, where this is right as Lord Copper he's just gotten this banquet, which of course no one else enjoys but him. Everybody there is only there because of him, which is one of the reasons that he likes it so much.
Right. Because people have to listen to him.
They have to listen to him. And then just as he's about to start enjoying it, it hits him that they've made a mistake, that it's the wrong boot, that they sent the wrong boot to Ishmaelia, and that actually he's participated in this gigantic farce. But the banquet hasn't even started yet. So this is what Waugh writes. At the name of Boot, applause broke out thunderously, and Lord Copper, waiting for it to subside, glanced glumly through the pages ahead of him. For some time now, his newspapers had been advocating a new form of driving test by which the applicant for a license sat in a stationary car while a cinema film unfolded before his eyes, a nightmare, drive down a road full of obstacles. Lord Copper had personally inspected a device of the kind, and it was thus that his speech now appeared to him. The opportunities and achievements of youth had been the theme, but he's now forced to imagine this endless driving test, which is instead of a banquet he's going to enjoy, and as he starts to get behind the wheel of this imaginary metaphorical car, he thinks the banquet must go on, right? And it's a commentary on what's going on underneath that stiff upper lip of Britishers. It's not just affecting to stay calm and cool and staid while other people might seem annoyed. It's actually that the realization that you're a total fraud and full of shit and don't stand for any of the things that you say you do is now front and center before your very eyes, and you have to pretend the opposite.
But Matt, isn't this very similar to maybe finding out, in 2016, hey, they got all the emails, they've got all our secrets, they've got all our embarrassing personal information, and then, well, the banquet must go on. Okay,
the banquet must go on. Exactly. I mean, it is funny that we chose to do this. It chose to do this thing, and because this story, it's the exact same kind of story. They ran something that's a lie, but it's too big of a lie to ever disclose to anyone. The lie has to become reality. And he starts imagining what the future is, and this is where Waugh's skill as a creator of one-liners come in. A future for Mr. Salter, that's the foreign editor. A future for Mr. Salter as art editor of Home Knitting, punctual domestic dinners, Sunday at home among the crazy pavements. A future for Sir John Boot with the cropped Amazons of the Antarctic. So they actually send Boot off to Antarctica at the end.
Well, the wrong one.
Right. No. The
novelist,
not William, the novelist. Right. They send the novelist, yeah.
Because the joke is the big joke of the book is that William Boot, who went from nature columnist to mistaken foreign correspondent, and by pure dumb luck got the scoop on the supposed revolution, comes back, and they have him sign a contract to stay with the paper at some huge, some huge annual sum, which he merrily does. But he stipulates that then afterwards, he's only going to go on writing the nature column. He wants nothing to do with the big foreign reporting jobs. And the foreign reporting job that they want him to go on, and which he refuses to, is a all women's expedition to the Antarctic. Okay. Which is, it's the 1930s, remember? And we think we invented
this is Shackleton. Yeah.
Right. We think we invented woke, though. This is an all women's expedition to the Antarctic. And what's so funny is that in some ways, the press's predilection for, I don't know, making social significance out of certain stories and so on. I imagine, this is the women's movement one. We've just had, the
suffrage, right?
Suffrage and so on, and you can see that the paper is sort of stubbornly in the past, but trying to keep up with this women's expedition. It's sort of the same thing that goes on today. Let's stay ahead of the curve, even though we're a self-indulgent, basically inert institution.
Yeah, but everybody gets their just desserts in the end. Yeah. The only person who comes out where they should is William, because William actually, the main character, the reluctant nature columnist sent into the African Civil War, where all the Westerners previously had been eaten, and gets the job done. And he gets the job done not by feats of journalism, but by sitting on his ass and chasing after a girl in a hotel, and
but also by not joining the scrum. That's a really important point. What Waugh says is that whenever journalists gather to do something and they take a right, just sit on your ass or take a left, and you might get the story.
100%. Journalists are just like deer, right? They sit in a big crowd, and when 50% of them decide to go one way, they all go. Right. And the rule number one in this business is do not be one of those people, and you'll be fine. Just stay where you are, or go in any direction. You'll find something. But whatever they're going for is going to end up being bullshit. I can guarantee you that. Right. And that's what this book says. Yeah, I guess just in closing, how does one place this book? I think there really isn't. I can't think of another book that's sort of strictly about journalism that's as trenchant. But more than that, this is somebody who's written a lot of terrific satires. Decline and Fall is another book that I love that Waugh wrote. Right. But it's very laugh out loud funny. It's in this pantheon of British wits who are famed for being able to endlessly pour out perfect sentences. The Oscar Wildes, Noel Cowards, Kingsley Amis, right? Like all those folks, Martin Amis. I feel like he's with this book. This book is definitely up there in the Mount Rushmore of novels, I think, from those folks.
I agree. I mean, from a writerly perspective, I judge writers by whether I envy them, by whether I envy what they can do. You know what I mean? Just like you would if you're a basketball player. You see into their game and you go, damn, I wish I could do that. Or damn, I got to learn to do that. Or damn, I'll never be able to do that shit. And I have that experience more often per page with Waugh than I do, I think, with any other comic novelist. He
has an unbelievable imagination for personifying things. He even does it reflexively, I think, in a way that's unconscious. Like, in the last passage that I read, where he mentions he's about to go into this big metaphor about sitting in a car and the driving test. But before that, nobody notices that he has a line about how Lord Copper turned the pages of his life, right? And this is how great writers think. They're already thinking in imagery and metaphors, right? And
yes, yeah.
figures of speech, and they don't have to sit there and conjure them. They're already happening. And
right.
He's one of those people for whom it's just effortless.
Here's one of the things that's superior about Waugh too, though. He has a perfect ear. Okay, his dialogue is absolutely perfect, and even his prose, it shows a perfect ear for the cliches and the rhetoric that he's satirizing. In other words, it's not just when he does voices. His own voice contains all these voices of different styles and different forms of diction deployed perfectly, but his knowledge of life and of people is so perfect that he doesn't have to be hammy at any point. The thing that you're constantly wondering at with or in awe about Waugh is that it's so accurate and yet so funny. Most writers will exaggerate or distort life in order to get laughs. He doesn't. He nails everything at the same time he gets laughs. And I've never seen that perfect convergence in almost any other writer. I mean, P.G. Wodehouse only writes about a very small tranche of society. The sort of, what we would call trust fund babies in America, but their version of them, and so on. But
Saki too.
But Waugh gets country folk, the aristocrats, the reporters, every slice, every demographic niche is perfectly and accurately captured in how it speaks, how it looks, how it dresses, how it acts, how it thinks. It's frightening almost.
Yeah. Actually, in my last thing I want to say is actually a question to you. I think there are different types of writers. I think there are ones who primarily hear, and others who are thinkers, right? Like, in other words, there's a type of writer who is more like a poet who is thinking about how words sound in a person's head, and they're worried about meter. How long is a passage? Is the timing right? Mm-hmm. Is it pleasing in the same way a poem is that you've read a passage for just so amount of time, or just this number of beats. Right. Waugh is one of those people who I think is, as you say, he has a great ear. Like the everything clicks like music with him all the way through, right? But he is accurate too. It's just that I think that's a quality of his writing that I always really enjoy. Reading it, similar to Chandler, some other folks who just they click along, and Chandler is more like jazz; it kind of flows. But Waugh is like a musical piece that you just enjoy all the way through, and jokes are the motor, right? And this is a book that if you haven't read it, and you're a traveler, it's a good thing to keep around just in case you need a laugh and to stop being depressed for a while.
So there's one detail in the book that just sticks with me, and it's throwaway. When Salter is at this sort of dowdy, broken down country house of the Boot family, he is sent to his room after he gets basically sick crossing this field because he won't ride the horses with the bumpkins. And a servant comes to the room and tells him the toilet doesn't work and all these other things that are absolutely endemic to British country houses. If you ever look at a castle, just remember you don't want to sleep stay the night because the electricity doesn't go all the way to that wing, and the toilets don't flush, and yes, there are a lot of mice and there are dead moths in all the drawers, but he gets on the way out of the room, the chamberlain or the butler or whatever closes the door, which just, of course, swings back open because it's not really, its hinges don't work or whatever. And then he comes back in to tell him something, and he goes out again and goes through the ritual of closing the door, which always swings back open a little. And that is the most acute, microscopic observation about British country houses there is.
Absolutely.
They're drafty and they're impressive, but the doors don't stay closed. And he never stints on those details. And so at the same time, his language and his music are perfect. So are his details. And you'll never see, I think, a tongue and groove match between those qualities like you will in Waugh.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a grand philosopher in the way like a Tolstoy or a Dostoevsky is.
He's the opposite of one. He's actually the opposite of one, because you know what the message of this book is? The pride of England is just that we are able to act sober when we're drunk. And keep...
Yes, exactly.
And as long as we're able to do that, the sun will never set on the British Empire.
On the Empire. And he's totally serious about that.
Yep.
Which is really funny. So anyway, thanks everybody for reading this book with us. And we'll have to come up with a new one for next week. So if you have anyone has any ideas, let us know. And we'll discuss it over the weekend in our skiff.
Yeah.
And see you next week.